Hey y'all, so today we're in our interactive experience vibe and I love that for us. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Shy in Second Life, and on this channel we check out aesthetically pleasing places in the virtual world of Second Life, and I also sporadically do lifestyle vlogs. So if you're interested in content like this, go ahead and subscribe. So y'all, although this is an interactive experience that has it where each room you walk into, there'll be a different sound for it and a different, musical vibe. We're not gonna be delving into the musical vibe. We're just gonna be vibing out. So what I will say is I have been getting more into my movie watching. Every now and then there is a bit of a phase that I go through where I just really am in the mood to watch some movies. So if you're truly new here, my favorite genre movie is going to be horror. Love a good horror movie. Recently, I did go and see Weapons. Not my cup of tea. Now, as we know, everybody's cup of tea is not going to taste the same. So we're just going to be sticking to my cup of tea. In the famous words of Rick James, I wish I had more hands so I can give it 4 thumbs down. I did not enjoy this movie. Now, for me, I felt like there were parts where things could have picked up, but they simply just fell flat. I understand where the movie was going, but it just did not land for me. I'm not truly sure of who was banging who in the Rotten Tomatoes voting room, but everybody needs to be investigated in my opinion. When I tell you, I read about the movie and I found out that this was originally a movie that Jordan Peele wanted to produce. Now, I do feel like had he had his hands in the making of this, then some things would have been turned around so that the movie made a little bit more sense. It had a very good base. The base of it was very promising. However, the delivery for me just fell flat. Now, one thing that I despise more than a bad movie is a bad movie with great actors. This movie had a really nice cast of actors. Everybody acted very well, but you can only do so much with what you are given. And in my opinion, the actors and actresses simply did the best that they could do, which was the only saving grace in my opinion when it came to this movie. I'm not saying that the movie is not going to be looked at as something great for other people because it did score 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. However, my feeling of what I enjoy when it comes to horror, this is clearly something that you can click. We're not going to click it because you know what? When I get to clicking stuff, I get to getting teleported places and we don't want to do that. Now, when it comes to my genre of horror, it's definitely different levels to it. It's very much so an onion, And so I feel like my adaptation of what I like to see when it comes to horror is always going to be something extremely versatile. I don't have one set way that I like my horror to be presented to me. However, I do like it to be horror. I'm cool with the creepy. We love a good creepy. However, I do feel like when it's supposed to be horror, it really should give horror. Now, for me, when it comes to if I had to pick like a favorite kind, I really love this room and it goes with my outfit. If I really had to pick a favorite kind, I love a nice horror thriller. I love a good psychological thriller. For me, that's always going to do it for me. One of my favorite psychological, which I consider to be like a psychological / horror thriller, was Split. Split for me is one of those movies where I always go back to. I'm always constantly thinking about it and just thinking about the fact that it was just so diabolical, but not unrealistic. And the basis of it for me was very telling. It was all the whole synopsis for it. When I looked at the whole of it, let me just put it in better terms. When I looked at the whole of it, it was the fact that there was a girl that was kidnapped by a complete psychopath that had multiple personalities. He tormented her and took her through all different types of ups and downs, and he saw the shattered pieces of her. However, the torment that she went through paled in comparison to the torment that she was actually going through, because she was being essayed by her deceased father's, was it the uncle, the best friend, or something like that now had custody of her, who was willingly and freely just all the time doing this to her. So although she was with this man who had all these different personalities and he was literally killing everybody around her, she still found peace in being there. And at the end of it all, to have to be returned back to her abuser to then start a whole new cycle of torment, it was just so many different levels to how diabolical the movie was, to actually understand that where she was better than where she had to be returned to. And so for me, again, I feel like that does speak to all the different levels of horror that can happen. And so for me, when it came to Weapons, I felt like it was so many other places and spaces that they could have went to that it just simply did not. Now, another thing that I didn't like about the movie's weapons that I also found confusing, that deer is adorable, is how they kind of did backstories on each person that was involved in being like taken over. But for me, I felt like it didn't hold any weight. I don't feel like it was any type of necessary information. It wasn't anything that was just like, and so now you can see how they ended up in this space. It was just like, okay, this is their backstory, and then they ended up in this space. To me, I felt like it didn't have any level of cohesion, and that really bothered me because I felt like the whole reasoning behind them actually doing like a quote unquote backstory on each person was just so that it had a little bit of cohesiveness, so that you understood like how they actually got into those predicaments. But I felt like it didn't have anything to do with anything. It was just these are parts of their lives, and then they ended up in this predicament. When I tell you it was just all over the place, I don't want to give too much of it away because it's a fairly new movie, and I know there are going to be a lot of people that go to see it. I know that there are going to be a lot of people that don't look at it the way that I look at it. They might think that it's a wonderful movie, and you're absolutely entitled to that. But for me, I felt like there was so much more that could have been done. Like I said, the movie had a really, really nice base to it, but it was just not well executed. I also didn't like the ending. I also did not like the ending. It was like all for nothing, and for me, I feel like when it's dealing with horror, either let it be happy or let it be not happy. But to let it be confusing, that bothers me because I feel like whoever wrote it, that's the mind frame that they were in. It wasn't to make a person think. It was just to simply be like, why the fuck would you do that? And for me, that's enough for me to be turned off by the whole movie. Even if I enjoyed the whole of the movie, just for the ending to not bring everything together in either a happy ending or not a happy ending, or even something that makes you question it, but to be utterly and completely confused as to be like, okay, and then what? It's one of those things where it's like, it's better to just have a piece of a person than nothing at all. I don't know. I absolutely don't know. And so it was just so many different levels that I was thoroughly confused on, thoroughly trying to figure out like, why is this happening? What is happening next? What is the reasoning for any of this? I was confused. Now, another movie that I did get to see, and I mentioned to you guys that I was very excited, waiting and anticipating on this movie to come out, was Together. Now, on the flip side, now there were a lot of people who had a lot of pushback about Together, and they simply did not like it. You know what? I did enjoy the movie, I must say. Now, again, this is something that was just like I think they labeled it as like a horror thriller comedy type thing. And you know what? I'm kind of getting into those genres, and I'm not really mad at it. A little funny with the demented is it's a little bit of my cup of tea. Now, I did like this movie, although it was very creepy. Although I just kind of felt like they like jumped into the creepiness and the weirdness of it all. I still feel like it did have a lot of cohesiveness to it, even though I did feel like there could have been parts that could have been added in to bring things together a little bit more. It just simply didn't. It was one of those things where it's like you can figure it out. If you see a scene and I'm on one side of the street, and then you see another scene that I'm on the other side of the street, you can surmise that I walked across the street to get to the other side. And for me, that was like the vibe that the movie was giving. I did enjoy the weirdness of the relationship between the two of them, and I also felt like it was hilarious that they're actually husband and wife in real life. So I feel like them acting together was so cool to watch, because it's just like one of those things where it's like they know each other so well because they both act, and then they're married to one another. So I felt like the chemistry was really, really nice. This is a really nice area. Oh, this is nice. And I really like how the doors close, so it looks like it's just one room when actually it is one room, but it's a way out. It doesn't look like it's a way out initially. So I really did like it. Now, the end, I felt like the ending was what I thought that it would be, but then it was actually kind of odd, because I was like, when you saw like the initial couple, not them, but the initial couple, again, I want to give too much away. The ending for them was not like that. And so I did like how everything like literally came together in the end. I felt like it was a really good ending to kind of bring things together. It was a lot of people that did not like the movie. They just was not pleased with the movie. They felt like it was pretty lackluster, and I can understand where they were coming from in that perspective. But I like a nice wicked land type thing, where it's like you don't really know that that's the space that you're walking into. You're wanting to go someplace and to find something a little bit better, but you don't really understand that you needed to appreciate where you were originally, because where you're going is way worse, even though it doesn't appear that way, even though you have no clue as to how wicked and crazy things could be. And then I also like the fact that it was this separation that was very evident between the two of them and through this journey. Can I get back here? Oh, okay, it's different levels to this. I really like it here. But through their journey, okay, because I know I ain't tripping. I know I just saw some move. Can I walk through here? Okay, no, it's just regular. I think this mirror is probably PBR. We're not turning that on. We're not doing that. But it's just like through them going through all of this, they became closer with one another, where they really had to like work together to get through things. And I felt like that was such a nice revelation, where it was just like she definitely wanted to be in the space. He just definitely, it seemed like it was something that he had went through that it never really got fully touched on a little bit, you know. They took a little smidgen. They did take a little smidgen, but it was definitely a disconnect between the two. So I really did appreciate how throughout the movie they became very understanding that they needed to work together in order to get through this. And it was definitely one of those things where in the end they were actually better together.